that we're going to run a raffle at the end. So that'll be picked by like one of the people who is in the room will be picked as the winner. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the YouTube live now. So from this point onwards, anything you say will be sent out to millions of people around the world, potentially.
Well, before that, Noel, are there any questions or anything that anyone wants to ask before we go sort of live?
Oh, one thing, Russell. I don't know if Noel said that for the play, it'll work better if people are watching it in speaker view, because when we talk, it jumps between us, so they can see the lines. Because we could be anywhere in the gallery by that point.
Okay, so do I need to inform the audience to switch to speaker view? Ready?
Yeah, I guess just for the evening as a whole, it might be easier.
Okay, I'll put it at the very start then. I'll just say if everyone...
viewing pleasure.
Yes, for your viewing pleasure, please switch to speaker view, which is an
Actually,
option.
that sounds super creepy. Find a different way to say it.
Okay, I'll just put switch to speaker view.
I'm just checking the YouTube's working. That seems to be so far. The YouTube address, or to see it live, is the best one. Is shorelineinfinity.com/live.
And I'll just say
viewing pleasure.
It's for your viewing pleasure. Please switch to speaker view. That's me on YouTube, is it? Okay, so that's the link that I've posted into the chat. If you have a chance now, it'd be great if people can share that so that friends and family and everyone else can watch along.
What's most on the blue screen there over my shoulder here. We'll turn this off. Because I'm just testing. I'm going to watch it in about 3 different ways to make sure it's all working hunky-dorily. So I've got to remember which one is the actual one I'm operating, which is this one over here. How are we doing for time? 5 minutes to go. Okay. So the idea is that everyone mutes between acts, and you control your own microphone when you come in, so that all the tapping noises don't get carried across. Right. So there's I've posted. Oh, I'm going to post it to everybody.
On Twitter.
No, Anne's just said that someone's having issues getting in on Twitter.
You're tagged in it.
You're tagged in the tweet, apparently.
And I don't know how to fix it. I've never seen that problem before. You need grey liner.
Okay,
I'll get on it. On Twitter, you say?
Yeah, you're tagged in it.
Okay, with disembodied voice, that is. On Shoreline, presumably, Anne.
Yeah, I think that's. But I've said to her that she could maybe just tell them to go to the YouTube live.
I don't know how you would.
I can't see any message. There's nothing on Twitter I can see. People waiting, that's nice.
He tried to join the meeting early and got removed and now can't rejoin.
So he tried to join the meeting early, then got removed and now can't rejoin.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, I thought that was a spam call coming through. Is like X572663Z. Ah, right. Are you doing how to reinstate them? Oops. It came about 6 o'clock. I was playing with it and testing it up, setting it up. Not sure what to suggest. Oops.
I guess the YouTube, the live YouTube stream is probably the best bet.
Yep. I can't see the message. I'm looking very hard for it.
Is that on your website?
Yeah, shorelineofinfinity.com/live.
Oh, people piling in at the moment. There's a little tingle. Well, there's a little bell ringing. There's a fairy coming into the hall. No, I can't find the message on Twitter about that. Oh, right, found it, yeah. Okay.
Just found it.
Oh, I've never seen that before. Didn't know you could do that.
I'm not sure how to actually let them back in again, because that's them gone, I think.
They just have to watch on YouTube, right? And then we can just include their name in the raffle draw.
Well, they'll have a ticket, so they'd be included anyway.
Yeah. I have no idea to get back in again. I'll give 2 seconds quick look on Zoom website.
It's 8 o'clock, so
okay, shall we let people in then?
Should we start letting people in? If we all go on mute for now.
Yep, there's 19, 20 people waiting. Oh, they're all piling in. Okay, I'll start letting them in slowly. So I'm going to say hello to them, Russell. There's Laura. People should be piling to us. Hello, hello everybody as you're coming in. Well, hello and welcome.
Hey everyone, we'll be starting in a minute, so just get comfortable. You might have time to grab a drink very quickly. We'll probably be starting, well, once we've let everyone in the room, we're going to be starting, so 1 or 2 minutes, I guess.
I've taken everyone's virtual tickets. Hello Laura, congratulations. Yay, well done. You can speak, Laura, if you want. You're muted.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much.
Laura won our prize for the best short story in our short story competition. So it was a beautiful story called The Chrysalids, which is published in Shoreline of Infinity. While we're waiting for people, give you a little personal head up. It will be coming. There you go. You can see it from over there. That's you.
Wow, it's surreal.
You'll get your copy in due course. I'm waiting for the printer to send a few boxes of Shorelines up here from down south. So as soon as you get it, you'll get one too. Anyway. Oh, okay, we've got a lot of people coming through. Excellent. Right, hello everybody.
Hiya.
It's a fine looking bunch of people coming tonight. I like it when you can see the audience. Oh, you're over there. Okay.
Can I see this?
You can make them forward a bit more, but don't block the light. I've got Jane here as well. So you've got Anne there. Do you want to, I suppose I can see Anne. Okay, Russell, that's it. I think that's everybody in that's been waiting, as far as I can tell. I'll let people in know that you can sneak in the back.
Okay. All right then, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Event Horizon number 50. Yeah, we've done half a century of these things now, but this is our second one ever online, fully online. And we're really pleased for multiple reasons, but one of them is, of course, that we're returning to the Cymera Festival, Scotland's genre festival, which is a really great thing. And obviously that's all online this year too. So please do check out all the different shows and tickets and workshops and everything that's available for Cymera. It's a great thing. And of course, we all want it to be back next year and hopefully in the flesh. One of the other reasons that we're really pleased to be here tonight is that we're going to be launching our special Spotlight on BAME sci-fi writers issue of the magazine. So if you don't know what Shoreline of Infinity is, it's a science fiction magazine. This is our issue before the BAME one. And it includes poetry, stories, reviews, comics, all sorts of artwork and other great sci-fi stuff. So please do check that out on shorelineinfinity.com. And at the moment, you can order the BAME issue at a special price of just £7 in print or £3 digitally. And it's actually it's one of our biggest editions so far. It's over 150 pages. And we've had guest editors, Tendai Huchu and Raman Mundair, editing that. So it's a really, really fantastic issue. I think it's probably one of our best to date. So one of the reasons that we wanted to do that, to have a BAME issue, was to kind of encourage to share diverse stories. And we felt that for that, we needed more diverse voices sending us stuff and published and as part of the team. And actually, we feel that science fiction is a great genre for that, introducing new and different voices to people. So that's kind of why we decided to do a spotlight on BAME issue. And you're going to hear from Tendai Huchu shortly about how we went about the editorial process doing that. So before that, of course, we've got a few other things, a few announcements. So please do follow us on Twitter at ShoreInf, SHOREINF. And we're using the hashtag Event Horizon for this. So if you have any comments or you want to share pictures or whatever it is, please use those. And of course, the Cymera Festival hashtag is hashtag Cymera 2020. Please use that too, so we can all check out what's going on and share our views on what's happened. So the other thing, admin-wise, is that at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a chat button. That'll open up a chat at the side of the screen, and we encourage you as the audience members to talk to each other, to comment on the things that you like that you hear, or anything that you want really, as long as it's pleasant. And you can have that inside the chat there. And because if you've ever been to one of our live events, you'll know it's usually in a pub. So what we do is we have all these live performances and people chat to each other, of course. So we will kind of want to maintain that as much as we can. And we'll also be having our usual raffle at the end of the night. And instead of all the wonderful, wonderful prizes that I usually give out, we're actually going to select a name from a hat of all the people who got a ticket for the Zoom event. And one of you is going to win a £10 voucher to spend on the Shoreline of Infinity website. And we'll draw that at the end. So for anyone who's been before, you kind of know what's in store. But for those of you who don't, you're going to hear poetry, prose, music, drama, and of course, some bad jokes. I introduce everyone with a bad joke first, a bad sci-fi joke. So this is the first joke. And if you have, if you want to try and guess what the answer is, you can put it in the comments there. How does the man on the moon cut his hair? Anyone can comment in there. How does the man on the moon cut his hair? Eclipse it. That's a new one. Came up with that one today. Anyway, on to our first act for today, who's Simon Dowser, who's a gospel and mbira musician. He plays mbira at various functions and venues such as weddings, charity events, cafes, and corporate events. Currently, he's due to release his debut gospel album on the 12th of June this year. So please help me to welcome Simon Dowser.
Thank you, Asith. Hey everyone. I'm just going to be playing this mbira. It's a Zimbabwean instrument. And outside is a laser. It's pretty much like an amplifier. And this instrument has been played in Zimbabwe for thousands of years. And it's been played on various ceremonies, which is pretty much like a sci-fi in a way. Because like for ceremonies like getting rain or when people were born, and it's different types of celebrations, so it's quite central to the Zimbabwean culture. So the song I'm going to play is called Nyika ye Zimbabwe. It's a song which pretty much brings some form of hope, as most people know. We've got quite a lot of issues going on in Zimbabwe. So Nyika ye Zimbabwe is a song whereby we are pretty much singing about hoping to have a good time in the near future. I'm just going to start one. Thank you. Legize butemba wairamba kubika sadza vakatozobika vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka legize butemba vairamba kubika sadza vakatozobika vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka chuku chamwana wevanhu chuku charega kudaro chuku charega kudaro chuku charega kudaro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe verekeka mai mariya vairamba kumbona sadza vakatozobika vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana baba nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana mai nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka chuku chamana vevanhu chuku charega kudaro chuku chamana wevhu chuku charega kudaro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka legize butemba vairamba kubika sadza vakatozobika vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana baba nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana mai nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka chuku chamwana wevanhu chuku charega kudaro chuku chamwana wevhu chuku charega kudaro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka mai mariya vairamba kubika sadza vakatozobika vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana baba nyika yezimbabwe nderopa kunana mai legise butemba vakaramba kubira chapter vakatozobira vatumbudzi musoro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka chuku chamwana wevanhu chuku charega kudaro chuku chamwana wevhu chuku charega kudaro nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka nyika yezimbabwe mukoma tiri vana vezimbabwe soteseka. Thank you.
Sorry.
Over to you, Russell.
Thank you, Fadzai. That was wonderful. Thanks so much. And Fadzai is going to be back at the end of the night to sort of play us out and raise our spirits again. So before I introduce our next speaker, we have a joke, of course. Oh, but I also forgot something. For the best kind of experience watching this on Zoom, especially if you're new to it, please do switch on to speaker view. So at the top of the screen, you can see you can switch between gallery and speaker. Gallery allows you to see everyone, but speaker allows you to kind of focus in on the person who's speaking. So please do switch to speaker view. Anyway, yes, our joke. How does Yuri Gagarin like his tea served? The Milky Way. I can see you all like that one. That was good. Okay, so, oh, A++, thank you. Oh, that may have not been for me. Was the A++ for my joke? No. Okay, so great honor to introduce our Shoreline Infinity friend, Tendai Huchu, who is one of the editors of our new issue of Shoreline Infinity, which shines a spotlight on BAME sci-fi writers. His own writing has appeared in many publications, including Lightspeed, Interzone, and Afro SF. His new fantasy novel, The Library of the Dead, is going to be published by Tor next year. So please put your hands together for Tendai Huchu.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and it's great to have you all, attending this event from the comfort of your living rooms. Back in the old days, people had to go outside, and go to this thing in a physical space where they're breathing the same air and stuff. So it's crazy to think they used to do that, but this is so much more convenient. It was quite an honor to guest edit this particular issue, and a lot of work too. But shout out to Noah Chadwick, Russell Jones, of course, Tipper Goldschmidt, Mark and all the guys at Shoreline Infinity of Infinity that made this happen, because it's only when you actually do this that you actually realize the sheer amount of time, effort, labor that goes into producing a magazine, especially at the end stages where they're dealing with the artwork and the physical production of the thing itself. There is an awful lot of work that goes into this. And then you've got these kind of events, which is another element of labor, that these guys do. It is absolutely remarkable. But I will confess, when I was first asked to guest edit this issue by Pippa Goldschmidt, when she proposed the idea to me, I was a little bit ambivalent and conflicted. Now, every serious writer I know works very hard at their craft, and they produce their thing, and they send it out in the world to magazines or publishers, depending on whether it's a full-length manuscript or short story or poems or whatever it is. And they send it out in the hope that it will get evaluated based on its literary merit. And the gatekeepers of the industry will either accept it, which is always great, or more likely reject it based on its sheer merit, right? But we all know this doesn't always happen. I'm not even going to speak about my personal experiences where I've sent work out and had feedback that my work has been turned down because my background was affected to whether they could take it on or not. Because when you really think about it, all writers, whoever they are, get rejected. It's all part of the game. But when you get rejected because of the literary merit of what it is you are doing, you can always go back, improve your craft, work really hard, work on your characterization, on your use of language, basic mechanical issues like grammar or punctuation, your characterization. You can write a better story and come back in a few months or a few years and say, hey, here's another thing for you to look at. But when you are turned down because of your background, I mean, there isn't really much you can do about that. It's not exactly like you can go off Michael Jackson it and say, hey, I'm now the right demographic. Now will you take my stuff, right? That's the door's shut. So when I went about, having meetings with Noel Chadwick, trying to suss out the intention of this particular issue, the great thing was I quickly realized that Shoreline wasn't just trying to do like a one-off, let's have a diverse thing and hooray, great, we're done with that, back to business as usual. What they were fundamentally trying to do is to say, we will open up to these writers that, might even look at Shoreline and think, well, this is a Scottish thing. They're not even interested in my work. And to say, okay, with an open submissions. Show us your stuff. Send us your work. We are open to receiving these kind of diverse works that we normally don't get, in the hope that in future, those writers that have responded to the call out will come back again, and hopefully you will end up finding more diverse works coming in, which is great for readers as well, because you want new, fresh stuff, the kind of stuff that you normally don't see. So I should say, again, the stories that I put in here, because I was dealing with the fiction and then Raman was dealing with the poetry, are purely in this edition because of their artistic merit. And this is a subjective decision. You have a different editor, they might have come in with a different cohort of stories, and this is understandable. And that's why different institutions need a diverse range of stuff, because that has a bearing on the outcomes on who gets published and who doesn't. I firmly believe that the writers in this particular issue, because of their talent and their dedication to their craft, are worthy of inclusion in any SFF publication around the world. And indeed, we've been fortunate to get writers that are really successful that have been published around the world. And we've also had new writers at the beginning of their career coming in. So you have this really wide range of material in this particular publication. And I really should say, the whole point of doing this, no one wants a fucking handout, all right? No one wants anything handed to them. But we are at least trying to create a level playing field so that the future editions of the magazine will be more representative, and writers can at least approach this one small magazine in one small country in the world, and hopefully be assured that their work will be taken seriously by whoever is at the other side of the desk, as it were. So thank you very much for turning up. I do hope that you will buy issues of this magazine and you will continue to support Shoreline of Infinity. But I think I've rambled on quite a bit now. So it's over to you, Russell, and hopefully we will, enjoy the actual artists that we're celebrating today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tendai. Thanks so much. You've done a great job on this issue with Raman. It's such a great issue, everyone. Please, even if you don't have the money to maybe buy a copy, do check it out and see who's involved. And as Tendai said, this is actually a prolonged effort on Shoreline's behalf to engage more with BAME writers and the BAME communities. So if you are interested in becoming part of the magazine, either as a writer or maybe even if you want to be a reader for us, please do get in touch because we want to improve on these things and continue to do good things. Our submission window is actually open at the moment, but it does close tomorrow. But it will, of course, reopen. So do keep an eye out on Twitter and Facebook and on our website to check if you haven't got something quite ready just yet. But if you have, then please blast it off as soon as you can, because we want to read it and we want to see it. Okay, thanks again, Tendai. Before our next reader, a joke. Why did the robot marry his fiancée? He couldn't resist her. I can see Fadsai like that one. I could see you laughing at that one, Fadsai. It was a good one. Okay, and our next reader is the wonderful Zen Cho, who is the author of the Sorcerer to the Crown novels and a novella, The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water, as well as the short story collection Spirits Abroad. She's a Hugo, Crawford, and British Fantasy Award winner and a finalist for the Locus and Astounding Awards. So please welcome Zen.
Thanks very much, Russell. So I'm a bit intimidated coming out with the next performance after Fadsai, but I'm going to try my best. So I'm going to read a bit from my new novella, which Russell mentioned, The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water. But I'm actually going to read from the art because I've scribbled all over it. I'm not going to read from the beginning. I'm just going to read from a scene just after the beginning. So the book starts when a bandit called Lao Feng enters a coffee house. And he ends up brawling with a customer in defense of a waitress who has been accused of committing magic. The bandit's sworn brother, Tetsang, joins him, and then they all get kicked out, basically, because that's what happens when you start a brawl in a coffee house. So this scene takes place after the fight, when both bandits have rejoined their company. Tetsang's eyes snapped open. He threw himself on the intruder, rolling them onto their back. The waitress from Winghua Coffee House stifled a squeak. Her alarm changed to relief when she saw Tetsang's face. "It's you, brother," she said, pleased. "I was wondering which one you were. You all look the same in the dark." The others stirred. Ahin, who was supposed to be on watch, leapt up, shouting, "Big brother! Intruder! Fire! Attack!" Feng Qiang was on his feet, his knife at the ready. "Asang, you caught him? Who is it?" Tetsang sat back on his haunches, letting the waitress go. She dusted herself off fastidiously. "Nobody," said Tetsang. "Just a woman." Someone lit a torch, and the scene blossomed to clarity. The groggy men rubbing their eyes and reaching for their weapons, the bald woman with her calm, infuriating smile. "A nun," the waitress corrected him, "a votary of the order of the pure moon reflected in water." "You're the girl from the coffee house," said Feng Qiong. "What's your name?" said Tetsang. "My birth name was Guet-in." Ahin had digested the implications of the waitress being a follower of the pure moon. "That girl's a witch! Must be she enchanted me, that's why I fell asleep." Suspicious muttering rose from the group like a bad smell. "Did you enchant Ahin?" said Tetsang. Guet-in looked injured. "No, brother was already asleep when I came. He looked tired, so I tried not to wake him up. I was looking for you, brother." "What for?" "You're the one I know," explained Guet-in. Tetsang jerked his head towards Feng Qiong. "You know him?" "Yes, but you're the one I trust," said Guet-in. "Because of you, I fought that guy," said Feng Qiong. "Yeah," said Guet-in apologetically. "Sorry, brother, but because of your fight, Mr. Ao fired me." "He would have fired you anyway. You cannot go around hexing customers and expect to keep your job. It's bad customer service." "He might have changed his mind before you got involved," argued Guet-in. "Anyway, this brother was actually helpful," she gestured at Tetsang. "He gave me money." "He did?" said Feng Qiong. He clapped Tetsang on the back, delighted. "Asang, you didn't say. When you're always scolding me for being too generous, all the more we shouldn't worry. That coffee house earned a lot of money today. It would be too ungrateful if they put the mata on us after all that." "I'm not at the coffee house anymore," said Guet-in. "I said they let me go." Tetsang said to the nun, "I gave you the money so you would go away. What happened to it?" Guet-in held up a soft black thing like the hide of a small animal. It turned out to be a wig. "I bought this so I'm not so conspicuous. It fell off when you jumped on me." She put it on her head. The effect was singularly unconvincing. "I still have the rest of the money," she added. "I thought of getting pots and pans, maybe some cooking chopsticks. But I wasn't sure what you all had already." "Huh?" said Tetsang. "Oh, I'm joining you all," said Guet-in. "Didn't I say already?" "You definitely did not say that." Guet-in looked piteous. "But I don't have anyone else to go. Brother caused me to lose my job," she meant Feng Qiong. Another thought struck her. "And you saved my life. That's 2 reasons why you have to look after me now." Tetsang's brow furrowed. "Wait, how does that even..." "Don't worry, brother. I won't be a burden. I'll make myself useful. I learned how to cook at the coffee house. And," the nun added with rather more confidence, "I'm great at cleaning." "We are roving contractors," said Tetsang. "We have nothing to clean." "Oh, I wouldn't say that," said Guet-in, looking at Tetsang's clothes in an unflattering way. "Contractors, huh? I thought you were bandits. What kind of contract work do you do? Building houses? Stuff like that?" "More stuff like that," said Feng Qiong. It was evident the nun amused him. This was a bad sign. Feng Qiong would do anything for a laugh. Tetsang glared at him, but before he could say anything, Abun intervened. "Maybe it's not such a bad idea, big brother," he said to Feng Qiong. "Gets boring just as men. A woman in the group could contribute something different. She says she'll make herself useful. I'm sure she can help us out, do more than cooking and cleaning. You won't mind being kind to us, right, little sister?" Abun chucked the nun under her chin. It was like watching an idiot child pull a tiger's tail. Tetsang leant back. But Guet-in kept her hands in her lap. She looked puzzled, but after a moment her face cleared. "Oh, you mean sex," she said. "Would you want me to have sex with you?" "No," said Tetsang. "Yes," said Abun. Maybe, said Feng Jiang. Gwen considered it. I can do that. I've never done it before, but it can't be difficult, right? Even cats and dogs know how to do. Of course, as a devotee of the pure moon, I vowed when I first shaved my head that I would have no profane intercourse with men. If I break my vow to the deity, I must make sure to cleanse myself afterwards. I would need to make a sacrifice each time. We are very open in this company, said Feng Jiang. Everyone can practice their religion, no problem. She means, said Tetsang, she'd have to chop off the dick of any man she fucked. That's right, said Gwen. You're very clever about our doctrine, brother. Are you a follower also? Chop off our dicks, said Abun. It's how I will wash out the sin, explained Gwen, using the men's blood. Strictly, my teacher would say I must do the cleansing even if I didn't go so far as to have the profane intercourse. Even thinking of having it is enough. If you're being strict, I should make the sacrifice now you've raised the subject. She directed a speculative look at Abun's crotch, but shook her head. But I think that's too rigid. Let's see what happens. I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. I'm sure the deity will close one eye on this occasion. Of course, if she doesn't, we'll soon find out, she said brightly. The deity is amazing. There was one time, this novice at my tokong stole the joss sticks to eat. She was always a bit weird. And before anyone even found out, her father's house burnt down. The family lost everything. We can't take her, said Abun to Feng Jiang. But Tetsang had read the signs right. Feng Jiang hadn't been that interested in the sex. He'd already made up his mind. He replied, you may enjoy Ai's cooking, but I'm getting fed up. Big brother, if you don't want me to cook, I don't have to do it, said Ai in a throbbing voice. Don't be stupid, said Tetsang. Your food is disgusting, but nobody else can do it. At least you appreciate me, second brother. Tetsang turned to the nun. This is ridiculous. You can't come with us. Take your money, get out of here, and find another job. No, you're not the boss, said Gwen. She nodded at Feng Jiang. Brother is the boss. I knew it straight away from the nobility of his countenance. I was the helpful one, Tetsang reminded her. The one who gave you money, remember? You said you didn't trust Allah. I trust him now, said Gwen. Before, I admit I misunderstood him. I thought, who is this busybody fella poking his nose into other people's business? Nobody asked him to beat up that guy also? Because he wants to show off, I must lose my job. But now I see I was wrong. This encounter has shown me his true character. Brother is like a knight-errant of the olden days, rescuing people from corrupt authority. His heart is like beaten gold, as beautiful as his face. She gazed at Feng Jiang, her eyes shining. Tetsang's heart fell. Feng Jiang loved being gazed at adoringly. Gwen reached out a reverent hand, touching Feng Jiang's chin. Brother, she said, I know you won't let me down. So that's from Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water. That's out on the 23rd of June. So I really hope you check it out. Thanks very much. Before I hand over back to Russell, I'm just going to mention that I'm going to be drinking wine for the rest of the night to try to increase the kind of plausibility of imagining we're in a pub. So I encourage.
That's a great idea. Thank you so much, Zen. There's a really amusing and kind of scary sample of your book. And I'm sure loads of us can't wait to read it. Please do share a link in the chat if anyone wants to pick it up, because I'm sure people will do. So before we have our next reader, we have a word from our transgalactic sponsors. So please stand by for transmission.
The disk. Breaking news. After 3,000 star cycles, a new shape has been confirmed, and it can be yours. Yes, yours, for only half a liter of tokens. The disk. The disk was thought to be a myth, but is now very much a modern reality. The disk can be used to hold food in a pleasing and convenient shape, throw for a service animal, and then bring it back, and oh, endless. You can roll it on its edge like a sphere, but with flat bits. It's like the middle of a sphere saves money. This is not science fiction. This is very much science non-fiction and bibliographies. A big one on legs can hold smaller ones for a status-neutral meal for the whole family. Richardson's Discs. Buy the real deal. Discs. Don't fall for a scam and buy a cylinder and a long coat disguised as a multi-pack. Richardson's Real Shapes. The Disc.
There you are. Pick up your discs now. So before our next reader, our joke, how do astronauts add more protein to their diet? They make it meteor. Lovely stuff. If you've ever been to one of these in person, you'll know how well these jokes go down. You know, people are rolling around in the pub laughing. Usually, I'm sure you are too, but you know, be careful. Okay, so our next reader is Robert Reni Galvan, who was born in San Antonio and now resides in New York City, where he works as a professional musician and poet. His last collection of poems is entitled Meteors, of all things, Robert. His poetry is included in Undeniable, Writers Respond to Climate Change, and in the forthcoming Chican X, Writers of the 21st Century. So please welcome Robert Galvan.
Good evening. What a pleasure to be with you. I'm going to start by reading 4 poems from a book I'm working on entitled Table of Elements, which was inspired by Neil deGrasse Tyson when we first met, and the book will be dedicated to him. And the first one is, of course, Hydrogen, H, which was featured in Gyroscope Review last spring. So from Table of Elements, Hydrogen. Loneliest atom, born from a battle of quarks and bosons that raged for 300 centuries, begat from a single mote, a mote smaller than a photon, cataclysm that framed time and all the elements, harmos, the binding of gravitons, cosmic crescendo of spheres, not from Mendeleev's blocks, but from a helix of strings, or whirlwind. We rose from the lightest elements like a dervish out of dust, carbon and phosphorus, hydrogen and oxygen, acid strains informed by light, for a scant waking, then back to the furnace of stars before we can know why. And now, cesium, which is in Shoreline's current issue. And the epigraph before is complex. It's from the 13th Conference on Weights and Measurements, and it says this: the second is the duration of 9,192,631,770 periods of the radiation corresponding to the transition between 2 hyperfine levels of the ground state of the cesium-133 atom. So 1 second is that by definition. So now cesium, the tuning of time from ephemera and ineffable strands to map eternity with a faint singing, a calculus of meager orbits beyond the tally of grains drawn by gravity or the count of jewels, the croaking quartz, unfathomable toll beyond the senses, an errant second every 20 million years, yet at its scale as erratic as a planet. Next element, krypton. Its name evokes the abode of Jor-El and his demise, the crystal bane of his son's strength. But a hidden waft forms into a multitude of earthbound stars, guides the weary traveler through the descent of a late night flight. And of course, in the airport, you have these cesium lights that are very bright and guide the airplane's landing. Next is barium. Vile draught descends to the viscera through its dark corridors, a dense and viscous flow. The journey charted by Redkin's invisible rays, which he discovered on a plate of the very element, and thought himself mad because he saw the bones of his own hand, locked himself in his laboratory, and repeated the experiment again and again until he knew it must be true, but unaware that he had projected his own demise. Then the next one is entitled Laniakea, and this is a Hawaiian word that means immeasurable heaven, that is, the stars. And this was published in last year's Revista Literatura Adelaide, but in English. Laniakea. There was a time when ships fell off the edge of the world, sails blown by the puffed cheeks of the west wind, the open jaws of Leviathan waiting in the abyss. An upended fishbowl contained the firmament, the clouds, the sun and moon, and all the stars. The only escape through death's door. Scurrying about with crude instruments, we etched elaborate maps, now obsolete. The face of the globe morphs as nations rose and fell, and even the gods dropped from the sky when heretics breached the outer shell. The spyglass gave way to vast arrays of electric ears that sprang up in the desert like gray mushrooms. On the highest peaks, stewards of the glass mapped the cosmos. A great eye beyond the clouds peers toward the beginning of time. Gives shape to the chartless, a plexus of storms that appears as a delicate eyelash, the Milky Way like a mote on a feather. We cross the field of stars back to the body, drawn with irresistible force into its inner filaments, its colony of cells, beyond the orbits in its base minerals, where we retreat to an immeasurable heaven. And then I'll read Mandela Effect as opposed to Mandala, which also appears in this current issue of Shoreline. Mandela Effect. We are shadows in the infinitesimal corridors of time, alive in one room, doomed in another. Cross over during momentary rifts we can sense but not yet measure. Ride gravity through diaphanous brains for only an instant, then back to our own world to find it utterly changed. And Voyager, which also appears now in Shoreline. Voyager. Adrift on the solar wind, almost beyond the cloud, a nomad clutches its golden treasure, a wafer of corrugated song, the apogee of our artifice. Planted in the furrows, sounds of the blue world, the roaring surf and the night wind, an avian chorus amid the singing leaves, Leviathan's voice from the deep, and even echoes of Leipzig. 40,000 years will pass before it reaches the next star. I imagine the force of a green sphere, drawing it to its aura, the great ear devoured. A white wound scars the amber sky as it plummets to its death. A portent from an unimaginable void, a reality yet unknown to the wandering tribe that looks up in awe. Perhaps they will come across the smoking crater, the disk intact with its graceful relief, a talisman passed from generation to generation, the meaning mangled by priests for millennia. It will never return. This next one was published in the Newtown Literary Review last winter, and this is the title poem of my forthcoming book, The Shadow of Time. And The Shadow of Time, the subtitle is New Year's 2018 Bear Mountain, which is a mountain about 40 minutes out of New York. The Shadow of Time. The star gazes through the glass. Excuse me, let me start again. The star glares through the glass, a frozen lake between two mountains. The world turns on its spine as it has for billions of years. What's a year? An accretion of eddies within a vast storm, an endless trek, but more than the distance between 2 points, a resonance we feel compelled to track, first with arrays of stone, then with falling grains of sand and complex contraptions of wheels within wheels, the heartbeats of liquid crystal, the adumbrations of an atom. I listen to what the geese tell me as they form a V and retreat, the toad as he descends to his muddy rest, the perennials as they retract beneath the frost, the empty symmetry of a hornet's nest, and the choir of whales fleeing in the deep. They all return like the tides, so tethered to the sun and moon, while we chop at time with a pendulous blade, doomed to live in its shadow. And finally, I'll end with a short one, which the title is derived from a rather curious fortune cookie message I received eating at our favorite restaurant. And the title is what it said on the little slip of paper. What is the distance between the eyes and the soul? From the edge of the iris, a vast nebula, to the dark core from which no light escapes. We consider a gateway to the soul, somehow sequestered within those spheres that widen to the dark night. A measureless void, an unimaginable loneliness we measure with meager steps. And in a blink, we are there. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Robert. I really love the sense of movement and the idea of change in your work. It's almost like this tireless push to encourage change in the wandering tribe. And thanks for also introducing me to the phrase immeasurable heaven. I think that's such a great description of space. So before we continue, I've got another joke. What's Spider-Man's favorite brand of rice? Uncle Ben's. It's a sad one. We're still not over it here at Shoreline HQ. I did want to say a few more words about the magazine. Again, this isn't the current issue. Please do check out the current issue. You know, we've been going for 18 issues now. I think that's over 5 years that we've been going for the magazine. As I said, we're open for submissions, and we actually do pay our writers, which is actually kind of an unusual thing in today's world, where it's difficult to kind of make any sort of money on a publication like this. And we also commission artwork. So if your story is chosen, for example, you may end up getting a. Oh, sorry, something's happening. We have a Zoom. No, sorry. A Zom call bleeding over from the parallel universe.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you for joining us here on this auspicious occasion. I am Dr. Timothy Pettigrew, head of the anatomical science at the Royal Egyptological Institute. We are very proud in these troubled times of plague to bring you another exciting event for this year's much reduced scientific calendar. As many of you may know, our previous unwrapping ceremony was supposed to commence the first of many such events, showcasing the finds from the recently discovered tomb of Sobek. Subsequent world catastrophes and hysteria here within the empire prevented us from carrying out further unwrappings. However, thanks to a royal decree from Her Majesty Queen Victoria, and in the early celebration of her 183rd birthday, long may she reign, we have been granted permission to continue to showcase these magnificent cadavers from ancient Egypt. The scientific community can learn so much from this recently discovered tomb. The previous mummified corpse was, as you'll be aware, badly damaged before its arrival, and it was indeed consumed in a violent fire not long after it had been exposed to the elements. However, this current corpse, perhaps even more than the last, shows signs of unusual reptilian physical characteristics. So, tonight should prove to be a most illuminating event. We are also very honored to be joined on this Zom call by the discoverer of Sobek's tomb, and indeed one of our greatest patrons, Lord Agnew Montgomery Fortescue. Welcome, your lordship.
Hello, hello, am I coming through?
Yes, you're coming through.
Ah, a wonderful, exciting occasion, what? So pleased to be able to join you by this newfangled medium. Steam-induced pictorial calling. Funny name, though. Zom. Gets the job done, though, eh?
Indeed, sir. Am I right in thinking you remain in Egypt quite close to the dig site?
Ah, yes, quite right, old boy. Been here for 18 months, and no plague's gonna shake me loose. Safest place to be here in the desert, surrounded by the dunes and my many armed guards, of course.
Can you tell us a bit more about how you made your discovery, especially in a region many assume to have been excavated to exhaustion?
Excavated to exhaustion. My dear fellow, many of these modern-day Egyptophiles, as I call them, simply don't have the nous to read the sand, or the necessary funds to bribe the locals until you turn up the right bit of information, and then it's just blast and dig until you turn something up. What?
Yes, that has seen you deliver some exciting relics into the Institute's hands. And of course, I believe you supply Her Majesty with some rarities.
Oh, yes. God bless her. Vicky does love her ritual statues. Anything to do with old Anubis or the afterlife, right up her street.
I'm sure our audience would be fascinated to hear of any finds Her Majesty has.
I think the last trinket I sent her way was one of those duat scales, you know, the fellow weighing your heart against a feather to see if you're found wanting.
What an interesting find.
Well, there are some rumors that Her Majesty has the mummified heart of a certain prince that she's weighing, but you didn't hear that from me.
This is going out live, sir.
So we found out about 20 cadavers so far. We shipped back 3, and the rest are here waiting until the supply routes reopen.
Indeed, the tomb is quite large then.
Oh, yes, it goes down into the sand, miles and miles, full of interesting hieroglyphics and some off architecture, but all seems to be from an unknown period. Only real similarities are the mummification process and depictions of the crocodile god Sobek. That's the god of splashes.
Ah, yes. I believe you have an amusing anecdote about a crocodile.
Well, yes, actually, very funny. One of the chambers in the tomb, there was a pond almost filled with water, and one of our chaps got too close and was bitten in half by a very large crocodile. Had to shoot the bugger. But what a lark, eh?
Yes, and it was through this chamber you found the first of the mummified remains.
Oh, yes, there was a bloody great alcove full of the buggers, all standing upright, pretty spooky, I won't lie.
I'm sure, but we've no room for superstition in the world of science. In fact, my colleague, Dr. Benson, who was supposed to assist with the unwrapping this evening, declined to join us for just such reasons.
Well, bad form. What, just because of the power cuts and the earthquakes after the last unwrapping? Coincidence.
Indeed.
Dr. Pettigrew, I must voice my concern again.
Margaret, how did you get on this call?
Hacking a Zoom call? It's easy, Thomas. Now, you must stop what you are doing.
There is no reason to stop. We are on the brink of an exciting new discovery.
The plague!
Now, madam, doctor, I really must insist.
You don't think there's a connection between the reptilian flux and what you're uncovering there?
Poppycock! The flux has been exaggerated. Her Majesty's Empire simply cannot allow a pandemic in 2020. What with all our amazing science we have at our disposal and the wealth of our glorious nation? Stuff and nonsense.
You're in the middle of the desert, my lord. You don't know what it's like here in the cities. Green scales appearing on the skin. People slithering around the streets. Great green crosses painted on the doorways of the infected.
We have seen these, but Her Majesty has it under control, and it has nothing to do with our undertaking.
Oh, you can't know that for certain.
No, but we can jolly well mute you, can't we, Dr. Pettigrew?
Indeed we can, sir.
No! What you're doing isn't for science, it's for your own bloody egos, you...
Jolly good. Now, shall we show the public exactly what they've been waiting for? We cannot keep this mummy locked down for 1 minute longer.
Indeed, sir. Allow me to begin the unwrapping. I'll begin with the face wrappings.
Doctor, there's another bloody earthquake.
It's unrelated.
My God! They're here! They're all here!
What?
Back, you devils! Back!
We seem to have lost Lord Fortescue due to technical difficulties. I will proceed with the ceremony, though. The cadaver seems to be moving. I'm sure that's normal. Oh dear. God save the Queen!
Hey, seem to have had some technical difficulties there. Russell, can you pick up and carry on?
Yeah, I think you're okay there, Noel. Sorry about that, everyone. I've put the multiverse blocker back on now, so we shouldn't get any more interruptions for the rest of the night now. So we should be okay. And that short broadcast was called The Unwrapped. It was by Jonathan Whiteside and commissioned by Shoreline of Infinity with thanks to Creative Scotland, performed by Jonathan Whiteside, Ben Blow and Debbie Cannon, with graphics by Mark Toner, produced by Noel Chidwick. The Unwrapped was an Infinitesimals production. And I will tell you a little bit about these people because they did actually manage to send me some information over the multiverse whilst this was all going on. Jonathan Whiteside is an Edinburgh-based writer, actor and producer. He's currently working on how to scare people with horror plays via Zoom. Debbie Cannon is an award-winning actor and writer from Edinburgh. She would have been touring 2 one-woman shows right now, The Green Knight and The Remarkable Deliverances of Alice Thornton. But unfortunately both aren't on right now, but they'll be back as soon as possible. Meanwhile, she's doing a lot of creative planning whilst eating chocolate. And Ben Blow is a very naughty actor who didn't send me his bio. Ben, therefore, enjoys eating worms and singing Christmas carols out of season. On weekends, he smothers his body in jam to attract ants to crawl over his nipples and into his beard for nesting purposes. Ben is also an Edinburgh-based playwright and actor. He's gained a first-class degree in drama and theatre arts at Queen Margaret University. So we'll continue on with the night as normal without any interruptions now. So a joke before our next reader. Why doesn't Magneto wear purple anymore? Because the days of fuchsia passed. Good one. The comic nerds out there will be loving that one. It's our great privilege to introduce the next reader, who I believe is probably one of the youngest authors that we've had along. Asith Pallemulla is an 18-year-old from Sri Lanka who spent a few years growing up in England. His first year of adulthood has included writing as a hobby, an escape, and as an excuse to stop worrying about going to university. So please welcome Asith.
Hi everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Okay. Yep. Hello. My name's Asith. I am 18. I'm sure I'm the youngest person on this call. I'm technically not allowed to drink in my country, so it doesn't work. I suppose this makes this my first pub night. But so I'm gonna read out a story I wrote. It's called The Digital Man. This is the story that Shoreline of Infinity is publishing for me. I wrote this when I was 17, and a year later it's found a home, so that makes me very happy. I hope you all enjoy it. I shall go. The Digital Man. Mrs. Swanson walked home as inconspicuously as she could manage. Of course, the black briefcase she carried made it nearly impossible to be entirely anonymous. The lousy things, she thought, no one in their right mind still used them, and yet that corporation insisted on them, even though the thing inside the briefcase was so minuscule that it could have fit in a pocket. She had considered opening it and taking out the package, leaving the case behind, but felt that doing this might draw attention to herself or damage the thing inside, so she simply headed home as fast as she could. It wouldn't be too difficult, for she lived quite near the corporation. Not that it had mattered to her before. She hadn't had to set foot in there before today. Mrs. Swanson didn't work there, though she had been asked to once. Her programming skills were relatively well known in the industry. Fortunately, but of course she declined, not after what her husband had done. Fortunately, she'd had Cynthia inside the business who did. It hadn't been easy to get the package. Mrs. Swanson had begged her friend to give it to her. Cynthia had initially refused. This wasn't an item that should leave the corporation under any circumstances. Weeks of bartering and arguing had followed until it was eventually replaced by outright blackmail, and Mrs. Swanson had eventually gotten what she'd wanted. Her hand shook as she held it up to the glowing touch security system on her door, so much so that she had to attempt it thrice before it allowed her inside her home. She didn't dawdle and booted up her computer system the minute she got in, afterwards opening the suitcase, revealing a miniature green digital chip that looked far too delicate for what it contained. Mrs. Swanson slipped the microchip into her computer scanning dock. It was simple enough, not unlike the USBs that had once been popular. She tingled with excitement and perhaps a little fear at what she was about to do. The computer asked her whether she wished to run the program. She replied yes, a little more loudly than she needed to. Corporate think tank Swanson blared her computer as it rendered the chip's program. Mrs. Swanson held her breath. The computer's announcement had triggered her sense of reality. It was finally happening. She had been fixated on this for months, and there was no turning back. She was doing this. The shape was beginning to forge itself on her computer screen, pixels fusing together, growing almost organically from something strangely embryonic into something more substantial. It was the shape of a man in great detail, but more importantly than that, the shape would be accompanied by the man's consciousness. The corporation's CEO's very essence was being drawn inside her computer. It would be a perfect copy, self-aware. It would quite literally be Mr. Swanson himself. It was almost sickening what she was about to do, but frankly, she thought Mr. Swanson had been entirely sickening too. Some people had called his idea sickening once. The concept of pouring his consciousness into a computer program so that the corporation would never lose its CEO. His memories, his genius, as he called it, preserved for eternity. His being ultimately simulated. Mrs. Swanson would make the most of it. The render was nearly complete. Her system was not nearly as powerful as the mainframe of the corporation. In fact, she had worried that she would not even be able to run the chip on her hardware, but it seemed to be functioning fine, albeit at a slower pace. Mrs. Swanson would just have to keep her methods relatively simple. The man in the computer was surrounded by darkness. He was the only thing in his realm of existence for now. He opened his eyes. He seemed to have been ready with a hearty greeting, but faltered upon recognizing Mrs. Swanson as the user. His surprise showed that Mr. Swanson's memories were still perfectly intact. "Hello, dear," said Mrs. Swanson. She began to realize that insanity had festered in her middle-aged brain, but she found that she did not care in the slightest. "Margaret," said the man, "how did you? Oh, never you mind. Perhaps you should have invested in more security using the money you stole from me." Mr. Swanson's face changed. Perhaps if he had been entirely human, it might have been different. He looked weary and wary, the expression of a man who had had this conversation far too many times and did not look forward to repeating it in his technological eternity, but knew he had no choice. Fear began to inch across his pixelated face. "Margaret, I know you think I've wronged you. You stole everything from me. It was my idea. You wouldn't have known how to develop it properly. I turned your idea into a business, into a corporation. And that makes it all right? Look, I offered you a job. Why would I work for a thief? You took everything we had and left me. You didn't want to use your idea properly. It would have been a waste. I only wanted to build a stable future for us. You mean for you? No, for us. You just refused to participate." The man in the computer had lost his chance. Perhaps deep down, there would have been a shred of forgiveness buried in Mrs. Swanson's otherwise broken heart that could have been brought out by the right words. But Mr. Swanson's words had been the same wrong words they'd always been, and Mrs. Swanson was reminded of why she was doing this. "Right," she said calmly. She rendered her holographic keyboard. The digital man became visibly terrified. It seemed that he knew what was about to happen. He was about to meet a cruel god. Mrs. Swanson furiously typed into her keyboard with all the skill of a programmer and all the haste of a madwoman. The chip had rendered the man, but everything around the man, that was her playground. The first few lines of code she typed were simple enough. She flooded the scene. Tectonic amounts of water suddenly appeared on the screen, and the digital man found himself at the bottom of a digital ocean. Mr. Swanson gasped and struggled, precious bubbles of air having already escaped from his mouth the second the water had appeared. He flailed his arms instinctively looking for the surface, but of course no end to the water world had been programmed. Looking at the mortally terrified man who had already seemed to be on the verge of suffocation, Mrs. Swanson lost any remaining doubt. This was exactly what she'd wanted. The ocean had been a warning shot, and she would no longer hesitate to use something worse. It was true, of course, that Mr. Swanson, being digital, would not be inherently capable of drowning, not unless Mrs. Swanson added her own code to the mix. But his consciousness, being an exact replica of his human brain, instincts and all, fully believed that he could. And it was that horror that Mrs. Swanson enjoyed inflicting, the terror of being in mortal danger only to survive and then go through more. It would be, in her eyes, valid retribution. Mr. Swanson gave up. He had yielded himself to the thought of drowning as the deranged woman looked on, but he was not so lucky. Just as the water was about to flow into his lungs, or just as he thought this was about to happen, the keyboard flashed and the ocean disappeared. Mrs. Swanson was delighted with her timing. Mr. Swanson, now on all fours, coughed and spluttered, gasping for air. He was instantly dry, of course. The computer did not render any remnant of the water, but the terror lingered in his psyche. Mr. Swanson was an intelligent man. He understood what was happening, technically speaking, but logic could not overrule instinct. He looked up at Mrs. Swanson as if to beg, but said nothing. Mrs. Swanson began typing again, and she would use whatever method came into her head. She removed the digital floor and made the man fall from an unimaginable height at speeds that would not have even been possible under normal gravity. It was the purest form of torture. And just as he feared slamming into a ground that never came, she saved him. He stood fine, but traumatized. The fear was now permanently stenciled in the man's eyes. Perhaps this was only because he was digital, or perhaps it was the extent of the terror, but it was there, and Mrs. Swanson was satisfied. With the joys of fear infliction finished, she decided to move on to pain, and she knew it would be well-deserved pain. Okay, I think I'm going to end the story there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you read the rest of it in the next issue. I'm very happy that it's found a home. Thank you for listening. Back to you, Russell.
Thank you, Asith. We all really enjoyed reading your story, and it's really great to include your work in this issue. And please do, everyone, do as Asith says and check out the issue and finish the story. You can't stop there. And I'm sure you've got a great future ahead of you in writing, so keep going. And before our final reader for tonight, we actually have another word from our intergalactic sponsors.
Are you tired of bad puns? Are you sick of bad jokes? Worse, do you have no sense of humor? Then you need the anti-joke plugin for Zoom. Install this plugin, and next time you attend an online event with Zoom, this natty filter will replace any poor attempt at humor with a life-affirming quote. Doctor, doctor, I think I'm a pair of curtains becomes, why be ajar when you can be a door? Don't be downhearted, be uplifted. Anti-joke plugin for Zoom. £75 for Mac or PC, Xbox or your fridge. For £25 extra, see kittens playing in a beer mug. Anti-joke. Bad puns no more. Available from www.shorelineofinfinity.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, I think we can all agree that no one wants that. That would be an awful, awful purchase. Although the kittens in a mug was pretty good. I think that's worth your money. So before our final reading for tonight, is it my final joke? I think it is, yes. I'm sorry to say, I'm sure you'll all be sad. But it's a good one. What do the Starship Enterprise and toilet paper have in common? They both probe Uranus for Klingons. And now on to our final reading, and I apologize in advance to Tobi for that joke before his reading. Tobi Ogundiran is a Nigerian writer of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. When he's not making music, you can find him with his head in the clouds, rescuing long-forgotten stories from the maelstrom, some of which have appeared in venues such as The Dark, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, and FIYAH. And I also believe Tobi's just got an agent. So congratulations to you on that, Tobi. I'm sure you're very happy. But please help me to welcome Tobi.
Thank you very much, Russell. I've heard more bad jokes this night than I have in my entire life. So yeah, thanks for that. So this story, it's actually in this issue of Shoreline of Infinity, and it was written back in 2017 when I decided to take writing seriously, and I'm really glad, I'm really happy to be here. So the story really is about two girls and the friendship between them, and it takes place in Paris between a mixed race child who has been depressed for a long time. So her mother has been trying to introduce her to new friends. And so this is the beginning of a new friendship. They became fast friends, Ralia and Celine. They became sisters. You could almost always find them hand in hand, skipping down the streets of Paris and singing their favorite song. They wore each other's clothes, braided each other's hair, and slept in the same bed, hugging each other tightly. Celine's parents were immensely pleased. Her father, who was French and owned his own bakery, delighted her and Ralia with sweets and other confectionaries whenever he returned from work. Much to the chagrin of her mother, who was Nigerian and curated a book salon, who argued that he was spoiling them too much. "No, ma chérie," he would reply. "Let them be as happy as they can be." One chilly autumn evening, Celine lay in her bed, reading her favorite book, while Rolia skipped on the bed until she was exhausted and finally flopped down next to Celine. What are you reading? She asked, peering over Celine's shoulder. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Oh, said Rolia, falling back on the bed. I've read that 1,000 times. Celine grunted in reply, engrossed in the book. She enjoyed the bright illustrations in this edition and was particularly fascinated with the hideous hump on Quasimodo's back. Ralia, seeing that she was being ignored, reached over and snatched the book, jumping off the bed before Celine could snatch it back. Give it back, Celine cried, springing off the bed. No, said Ralia, it's a stupid book. It's not a stupid book, Celine cried in defiance. Yes, it is, said Ralia, sticking out her tongue. You've read it several times already. Well, so have you, Celine countered. Ralia gave a sugary smile. You don't see me reading it now, do you? I don't care, Celine cried, and she lunged for Ralia. But Ralia was faster. She opened the window and threw out the book. They both watched it draw a parabola in the overcast sky, the wind ripping its pages like a savage dog, before it dropped down in bits and pieces to the Parisian streets below. Celine screamed, a familiar rage rising up in her. She charged at Ralia, who was laughing. She scratched at her, yanked at her hair, kicked her, and screamed so loudly that both her parents broke into the room, their faces masks of worry. Celine! Celine! But there was no reasoning with her. Her father lifted her easily with one arm, and it was not until her mother threatened to smack her to the sky and back that she grew calm and stopped thrashing. Ralia lay on the floor, a battered, trembling heap. She hadn't protected herself at all. She hadn't even fought back. Celine hung limply in her father's hands, coming slowly to her senses, wondering if the book was worth so much that it caused her to so violently attack her friend. Celine watched her mother rush over to Ralia's aid. She guided her into a sitting position and brushed the tangles of hair away from her face. Ralia's face was barely recognizable. It was swollen and streaked with blood where Celine had scratched her. Jesu Christi, said her mother. Mon Dieu, echoed her father. I'm sorry, said Celine in a small voice. She wriggled free of her father's grip and went over to Ralia. She stretched out a hand to help to comfort she didn't know, but Ralia flinched away, shrinking into the wall and the curtains, and it was a knife through Celine's heart. I want to go home, sobbed Ralia. I want to go home. Celine did not see Ralia for 2 weeks, and she very nearly went mad. She hung out in the favorite park in the hopes that Ralia would come skipping so she could apologize profusely to her. But Ralia never showed up. It struck Celine as odd that in the several months they had known each other, she had never been to Ralia's house. She didn't even know who her parents were or what school she went to. She begged her mother, who had introduced her to Ralia, for her address. Surely she would know, but her mother merely pursed her lips and shook her head and said, when Ralia is ready to see you, she'll show herself. Her father still brought sweets and cookies every day from work, but now that Ralia was not here to share them with her, Celine had absolutely no appetite for them. Once, as she walked down the street with her mother, she caught sight of Ralia dancing and skipping merrily to the tunes of a street saxophonist. Celine let go of her mother's hand and raced to her friend, sweeping her up in a crushing hug. Oh, Ralia, Ralia, I'm so happy to see you. I'm here too, asked the girl, flustered. Kia Ralia. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Ralia. The tears came unbidden to her eyes, and Celine stood there in the middle of the street. Her mother's firm but gentle hand pulled her away from the bewildered girl and saxophonist. She led Celine to the railing overlooking the river Seine below. I do believe you've learned your lesson, Celine, she said softly, wiping the tears that coursed down Celine's cheeks. It doesn't matter what has been done to you. Never, ever lash out like that. We're not animals, thank God, so we shouldn't behave like one. I know, Mama, said Celine, but where is Ralia? I want to apologize. I will speak to her father, said her mother. I'm sure Ralia would love to see you too. That night, as Celine rocked herself to sleep, she heard her door open and caught a whiff of Ralia's familiar scent. She sprang out of the bed and swept Ralia up in a hug. She held her at arm's length to study her face. The scratch marks were still there, and though they were healing, they would leave black marks across her face once they were completely healed. A wave of guilt washed over Celine. I'm sorry, Ralia. I'm so sorry. It's fine, said Ralia. I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have thrown out your book. I was stupid. No, I was stupid. I shouldn't have. No, I was stupid. Then they burst out laughing. A warm feeling of contentment spread out over Celine. Look, I bought you a new one. Ralia produced a gift pack from the folds of her skirt and withdrew from it a sparkling new copy of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. They fell asleep in each other's arms. By the next morning, under the bright rays of the sun, Celine could see that Ralia was limping. It was a slight limp, barely noticeable, but it was there all right. Celine initially decided to ignore it, but as the day progressed, Ralia's limp became even more pronounced, so that she was forced, eventually, to voice concern. Did I do this to you? She asked tentatively. What? Asked Ralia, a little distracted. She was trying to catch a pigeon. Your leg, you're limping. Oh, this, said Ralia, laughing. She lunged and closed her hands around the unsuspecting pigeon, which promptly gave a loud squawk, struggling to free itself. It soon gave up, realizing the futility of its efforts. I twisted my ankle when I jumped from the bell tower. I always land in an easy crouch, but this time I was distracted, so I twisted my ankle. It will be fine. Celine wasn't quite sure she heard correctly. You jumped from the bell tower? Ralia gave her a sly look, a light smile playing on her lips. She reached into her pocket and brought out some breadcrumbs, which she began to feed to the grateful pigeon. Yes, I've been jumping off the bell tower ever since I read The Hunchback. Celine searched Ralia's face for hints of mischief. There was none. But the tower is very high. How haven't you died? I simply believed, said Ralia. She crouched and let go of the pigeon, but it had imprinted on her and wouldn't move no matter how hard she should. It's like flying, really, the best feeling in the world. You simply climb up there, believe you can do it, then let go. She smiled at Celine's perplexed look. I told you I can do things. I can show you, of course, if you'd like. Yes, she liked. She was curious as to how one could survive a fall of over 300 feet. Do you want to hear a story? Ralia asked. They were back in Celine's room. Celine sat between Ralia's legs, her head tilted backwards as Ralia braided her hair. Yeah. It's a Nigerian folk tale, said Ralia. My father loves to tell me Nigerian tales to remind me of my roots. Does your mother tell you folk tales? No, said Celine. She knew very little about Nigeria, except the fact that it was hot, and her relatives were so numerous it was hard to place who was who. She had seen the photo albums, the lots of them 70 or so, grinning in spite of the glare of the sun. Ralia gave a dramatic sigh. Oh, you poor thing. Well, it's lucky you have me. So, the tale begins like this. In a little village called Asith, there lived a wicked king. He was rich and powerful and very kind. The villagers feared him. Anyone who tried to stand up to him always disappeared without trace. And so the villagers learned with time not to complain, regardless of the harsh living conditions. There was very little food. The king took it all, and not that there was famine or anything like that, no. He just wanted them to suffer. He liked to watch them suffer. He was very wicked, Celine remarked. Yes, Ralia agreed, visibly pleased. He took all the best lands for himself, all the best girls. He had a very large harem of beautiful virgin girls, Celine giggled. Anyway, one day he went about the village as usual, seeking the finest girls to collect for his harem, when he found this girl by the stream. She was singing, her voice was magic, and the king fell in love immediately. He took her and decided to make her his queen, not just place her in the harem like the others. The girl, of course, was upset. She didn't want to leave her family and friends and spend her days locked up in the palace. But her family begged her not to cause any trouble because the king always made troublemakers disappear. Did she want them to disappear? Did she? She answered no, and that was that. She was taken to the palace and was made queen. The palace was large, and she had thousands of servants who served her and attended to her needs. But she was lonely. Eventually, even though this wicked and terrible king did his best to be kind to her, she still felt unhappy. Even though she was generally free to roam the palace, she was never allowed to leave, and soon it became clear she was a prisoner. The only time she was alone was at night, and so, in the night, she started to explore the palace, seeking for an escape. That was how she came across the door with no lock. A door with no lock, Celine repeated in a hushed, dramatic whisper. She tried to envision a door with no lock, and the vision of a wall rose in her mind. A door with no lock, Ralia repeated. It was the magic door, and it always changed positions. This night it was here, another night it was there, and the girl enjoyed roaming the palace every night, trying to find where the door would appear. Every night she found it, she grew more and more excited, until she was no longer content with just finding the door. She wanted to open it, to see what was behind it. She was convinced the way to escape and freedom was behind it. Celine turned to face Ralia, her eyes wide with excitement. Did she open it? Ralia smiled. The door sensed she wanted to enter and spoke to her. It said, I am a door. My name is Door. I am protector of secrets within. And the girl answered, I am a girl. I am the queen. Open door and admit me in. And the door swung open. Celine clapped and whooped with glee. And what did she find? She asked breathlessly. Hundreds and hundreds of small stone sculptures, said Ralia. The girl realized with horror that they were the villagers who had disappeared, turned to stone sculptures by the king. Celine clapped a hand over her mouth. She ran out of that room and roused the palace, screaming at the top of her voice of the atrocities behind the vanishing door. Soon, the news of what had happened, of what the king had done, soon spread around the village, and all the villagers, in their fury, marched for the palace to kill the king. Yes, whooped Celine. But the king fled and was never heard from again, Ralia finished. Till this day, the door remains in Nicaea, changing positions every night, hiding the hundreds of statues behind it. Wow, breathed Celine. Dusk had fallen, long shadows fell across the room, and she could see the door before her, the door without a lock, hiding humans turned to stone. But it's not true, is it? It's a folk tale. Ralia shrugged. Just then, Celine's mother called from the kitchen. Dinner, my dears. I'm going to stop here. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you, Toby. That was a really great extract from your fantastical stories. And congratulations again on getting an agent. I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing your books coming out in the future. So keep us posted on what goes on. And we're going to be drawing the raffle soon and saying a few thanks. That's shortly. But first, we're going to hear a little more music from Simon Dowser to end our performances for the evening. So please welcome back Simon.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just gonna play this short piece that I wrote for my wife some time back. It's a Mbira tune. She normally dances to it, but unfortunately, she's not here at the moment, so I'll just play it. tabisu, dokda, tabisu, dokda iwe tabisu, dokda, tabisu, skana akanaka, skana anirudu, skana anetiti, dokda, 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 tabisu, dokda iwe. Thank you.
Thanks again, Fadzai. That was great. So before I draw the raffle, I've got a few thank yous, well, lots of thank yous actually. You'll see how many people we have tonight who've been involved in tonight's show. So first of all, our readers and performers, who were Tendai Huchu, Fadzai Mandaza, Zen Cho, Robert Reni Galvan, Jonathan Whiteside, Debbie Cannon, Ben Blow, Asith Pallemulla, and Tobi Ogundiran. Thank you. Have a round of applause for them. A lot also goes on in the backgrounds of these things to make all of this happen. So I'll do all of these at once and then we'll give them another round of applause. So producer Noel Chidwick, sound and video Mark Toner, also to Creative Scotland for helping to fund the event, to James McIntosh and Noel Chidwick and Mark Toner for the sci-fi inspired adverts that you saw, to the Cymera Festival, especially Anne Landman for having us along. And everyone, please do support this festival. Check out what else is going on, tweet about it, talk about it, visit the sellers page, and really kind of help to big it up so that this can happen again next year. And also thank you to you, the audience, because without you, we'd all be zooming across the multiverse whilst itching our scales. So one big round of applause for all of those people, please. Okay, and now it's time, Noel, for us to draw the raffle. So whoever won this raffle, who was in the Zoom today, gets a £10 voucher, which we'll send you the details via your email, because we have that. And you can spend that on whatever you like on the Shoreline of Infinity website. So Noel, you there?
Yep, I'm here. I've just got the hat. So let me just delve into the hat. Can you see there? Okay, Russell, I'll now pass you the winning ticket.
Okay, thank you.
Got it?
Got it. Yeah, got it. And the winner is Laura Watts. Laura Watts, you've won. Congratulations. And Laura, we have your email address because you signed up, you booked a ticket, so we'll get in touch with you about how you can claim that. And the only thing that's left is to say that Shoreline of Infinity releases new content every Thursday online now. So you can see lots of different readings, interviews, performances, and so on of a sci-fi nature Thursday at 8 p.m. So please do check out our website and Twitter. And join our social media at ShoreInf on Twitter using the hashtag Event Horizon if you want to talk about tonight. And finally, it's just to say, please do stick around and chat if you'd like to. You can use the Zoom or you can chat in a little text box there. Otherwise, I've been Russell Jones and this was Event Horizon number 50. Thank you and good night.
Okay. Thank you, Russell. Well done. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming.
Dangerous button press.
Unmute.
You can say hello to everybody. Are you unmuted? Oh, that was him.
Well done, that was great.
Yeah, good show.
Absolutely wonderful.
Great. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Everyone stuck around anyway. The audience didn't disappear or anything, and we had a few people on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah.
It was good fun to do.
Want to hear the end
Great
of
fun with the rehearsals. Asith, thanks very much for joining us. It was a great read. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was a good first time.
You did brilliantly. So I think everyone is totally going to rush out and buy the magazine now just to read the rest of your stuff.
Way ahead of you.
Good man.
Thanks. It was fun.
So I hope you keep writing and keep sending us stories. So don't stop
Yeah.
there. That's just the start of things.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
Well, because I stayed sober the whole time, so I could say everyone's names properly and do all that sort of thing, I'm going to go and have a beer in the garden.
Well deserved.
Thank you. Yeah, and I thought it was really good. Yeah, thanks to everyone who came and to everyone who read and performed. I thought you were all brilliant. So stay in touch. Okay, right, I'm going to head off. So good night.
Russell, enjoy your well-earned beer. Okay.
Thank you all. Speak to you soon.
Hi, Debbie. Well done.
Thanks. Hello, guys.
You've not been muted this time round.
Bye. Okay. Oh, hi, Callum. I didn't realise you were there. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and I've just been kind of lurking in the background here. I think I arrived a little bit late.
That's right.
Aye.
I was letting quite a few people in after it started. So it was great to see everyone turning up and sticking around.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays.
Yes, yeah. Well, hopefully one day we'll get back to do these things in the flesh.
I mean, on the other hand, I can't really attend these things wearing a dressing gown, so swings and roundabouts, you know?
Actually, you do realise the camera's actually on. We can actually see you.
As if I didn't unplug it.
Extremely hairy.
I have my dressing gown nearby because I'm jumping into this as soon as I turn the camera off.
That is a fantastic dressing gown, just for the record.
No, I would have to charge you extra for the striptease now.
Worth it.
Everyone needs a side gig.
But again, this was wonderful. This is like my second event Horizon, and it's just absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for all the work you put into making this happen.
Well,
and
thank
hopefully
you for all your work.
I will catch you guys for Event Horizon 51.
Yeah. Can't wait, yeah. Well, thanks
Good
again
night, guys.
for editing, Tendai. It's been brilliant working with you and hope to continue.
I shall look forward to that.
Okay. You getting your dressing gown?
Okay.
Callum, you're going to have to cross your legs. It's just pretty bad.
Keep calling me on this and it's just going to get turned on, though.
Okay,
I mean,
stop
I'm not
there.
responsible.
Stop there. That's a threat too far. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to join Russell, as it were, with the drink myself. So I think I'm going to say cheerio and thank you everyone for coming. And great applause, Mark and Anne. That was fantastic.
All right. We're clapping as hard as we can to make it come through.
I realised halfway through that was canned applause. No.
Was it? Oh.
There's a whole team here, actually.
There's extra pairs of hands that come in.
See, we've got loads of it.
There's a duck.
See, there's more than you think.
What a system.
You're haunted by clapping hands, Mark and Anne. You're right.
Yeah, I noticed we've traumatised somebody with that blue man from the adverts, actually. That it's maybe not use that again.
What did they say?
Somebody said that's their nightmares forever after that.
Oh, yeah, that was me, actually.
Oh, was that you, Galvan?
It was. Proper Uncanny Valley stuff. I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's scary, that
No, I couldn't let Russell get away with the joke scot-free. That would have been unfair.
Aye, right enough.
Mind you, his X-Files, his X-Men joke was top notch. I really like that one. I was don't tell him I said that. Don't tell him I said that.
They do still. The punchlines still catch me by surprise. Like I know they're going to be terrible, but I'm rarely able to predict them.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of hang on to it somewhat tight till it's passed, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to finally say cheerio. So thanks everyone for
Yeah.
coming, and Joyce, whoever you are, thanks for coming too.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
That was a good turnout. 2 pages of faces. That was great.
I think I counted 46 at peak.
Yeah, got busy.
And there's about a dozen people watching live on YouTube separately as well. So
Are they
good
still
audience.
watching?
Good audience.
They can watch back.
Yes, they are still watching. Yes, we are still live on YouTube. I forgot about that.
Oh, so yeah.
I knew I'd be famous on YouTube someday.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so don't
Those
be-
knees will be all over the Twitter by tea time tomorrow. Yeah.
Fabulous. But yeah, thanks very much for this. This is
And you.
fantastic. Good on you.
Okay, I'm going to switch off now and switch off the YouTube and everything. Now.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you bye.
Bye.
Good night, people. Where's the off button?
Don't worry. Watch this.
I found it.
Bye. Good night, no.
Bye.